I back on? Can you hear me? So, what's your favorite thing you learned about God this week? He's patient, yes. Very sensitive to our needs, yes. Yes. Yeah, he does not worry. He knows what's going to happen. He knows what we're going to go through, and he knows he can help us through it if we just trust in him. Yes. Yep. Yeah. He'll meet all of our needs. That's right. Yes. Well, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. He. Sometimes he knows that if we go through some difficulties and if we will trust him through those difficulties, then we will have a much better understanding of who he is, and we will know and love him even more. And so sometimes those things happen that we have to go through. Yes. 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 Yes, definitely. Definitely that part. If he will. Yes. Well, that's good. Yeah. Well, good. Good. It's kind of funny. 2 weeks ago, because that was the last time that I did this, we talked about King Hezekiah and how the Assyrian army came and they surrounded Jerusalem. They basically taunted God, not Hezekiah, but they taunted God. And then I just thought right after that we would go on to the next king, which is Manasseh. Well, yeah, we did some minor prophets and finished Isaiah, and that was all in Isaiah. And then last week, before when Todd was doing, we read this story again out of Second Chronicles, I think, and then this week we read it again out of First Kings, or maybe I got those backwards, Second Kings. But the story is in there 3 times, and so again, early in this last week, and what we're reading for this week, we heard that same story again. But I did make this statement 2 weeks ago that I wondered when the Babylonians came and he showed him everything, I wondered if, because I noticed that Darrell Ray said that he was prideful and he was showing this out of his pride. And I always wondered if it was more of him just, look what God has blessed me with or something that way. Well, in Second Chronicles 32, it says, "But Hezekiah's heart was proud, and he did not respond to the kindness shown him. Therefore the Lord's wrath was on him and on Judah and on Jerusalem." So yes, he was proud. I just hadn't read that part. And I know I've read it before. It just didn't stick out to me, probably because I didn't read them, all at the same time. But yeah. Yes. And that's going to be important. We're going to talk about that again in just a minute. So he got sick. He prayed, and actually Isaiah came to him and said, "You're going to die." And it talked about him turning to the away from the doorway toward the wall and praying and saying, God, I've done all of these good things for you and for the kingdom, for Judah, and won't you let me live longer? And so God came. It said Isaiah, he didn't even get out of the palace. He was leaving, and he had to turn right back around and go back in and said, yes, God's going to give you 15 more years. And then we had the shadow that went back up the steps for 10 steps. So when he did finally pass away, his son Manasseh came to power. How old was Manasseh when he came to power? 12. And how much longer did Hezekiah live? 15 years, which means Manasseh was not born when the first time God came and said, you're going to die. That happened after that. And I had a pastor one time talked about how Manasseh was one of the worst kings ever, and had Hezekiah, just surrendered to God and say, okay, I'll go. Manasseh would never have been born. So maybe there's a lesson there for us. I don't know. Right. Right. Yeah. It's fine. I'm not going to be around. Yeah. And it was his son. So Manasseh, as soon as he became king, do y'all remember some of the things that he did? Everything you could think of, yes. He burned his children in fire. Hezekiah had cleaned out the temple. He rebuilt the altars in the temple. And remember, Hezekiah did this all before he was even born. So the only way he would have known is other people telling him. He was not alive when Hezekiah, did all that stuff. He got rid of the Asherah poles. Manasseh put them back up. Manasseh put altars to Baal all over the country. He bowed down to the starry host and worshiped them. Let's see. He built altars to the starry host. He sacrificed his son in the fire. He practiced sorcery and divination, and consulted mediums and spiritualists and necromancers, as one of the translations said. All of those things Hezekiah had cleared out of the country, and Manasseh brought it all right back in. Yeah. Didn't take him any time at all. That's right. He did it as soon as he became king. He started doing all those things, bringing it all back. So what happened to Manasseh? Manasseh? Yeah, that's what we're getting ready to talk about. So what happened to him? Why did he change his mind? Or when did he change his mind? Took him captive? Yeah, hook in his nose, bound him in shackles, took him to Babylon, and when he got there, he was king, and now he was a prisoner, and all these things happened. It says, in his distress, he sought the favor of the Lord his God. He humbled himself greatly before the God of his fathers. So he ended up dying. His son became king. And who was his son? Yeah, I left that part out, didn't I? And he was only king for a very short time, right? Was it 2 years? And then we had another good king, the last good king. What was his name? Josiah. How old was Josiah when he became king? 8. And he became king? Yeah. I didn't write it down. But Josiah was a good king. Like I said, he's the last good king of Judah. um, before the exile. What happened during his reign? First thing, he told him to go and get the temple back in order, clean it up, clear out all the altars, and get it repaired. But what happened when they were repairing the temple? They found the scrolls, the book of the law, and the priest and the secretary, I don't know all of the details of all the different people. They read it and realized that they were wrong, and they put on, I think they put on sackcloth and ashes, and then went to the king, and they read it to him, and he also humbled himself. He put on sackcloth and ashes, and he was like, we are in big trouble. And so God saw that, and basically blessed him for humbling himself and turning away from the sinfulness that his father and grandfather had done. And then he celebrated Passover. What did it talk about that Passover? What did it say about that Passover? They hadn't celebrated in years. And what else? Yes. Want to reestablish the practice of having Passover. And it was a Passover. There was nothing like it since the time of Moses, I think is what it said. That there had not been a Passover celebrated in that way. And so God used him, and then he went to battle against Pharaoh Necho. What happened? Yeah. He was killed in battle. He got a little arrogant and took on Egypt, which is one of the largest, most powerful countries even still at that time. And Pharaoh was like, no, you are no match for me, basically. Don't do it. But he did it anyway. And it said that he disguised himself in battle, and sure enough, somebody shot him and killed him. Shot him with an arrow and killed him. And so who became king after that? Jehoahaz. And he was king for, 2 months? 3 months. And then the king of Egypt, Pharaoh Necho, conquered Jerusalem, took him away from being king, and made his brother Eliakim king, and changed his name. Yes, Jehoiakim. Yeah, Jehoiakim. And there won't be too many others. So, Nahum, the minor prophet Nahum. Remember anything from that? Well, yes, I'm trying to think. One of them did. I don't have that right in front of me. But I know he was. God is always going to judge evil, judge wrongdoings. Was his main theme all through everything. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, it'll be after there. And after that. But I know one of them did talk to Nineveh. Let me see if I even have this. Which is the Assyrians. Nineveh is the capital of Assyria. They're the ones that destroyed or conquered the northern kingdom. And then basically, God told them that they were going to be destroyed by another country. Yes, Nineveh, he did. And that was the Babylonians. And the Babylonians destroyed the Assyrians, and then later the Babylonians were destroyed by the Persians, the Medo-Persian Empire, the Medes and the Persians, and out of it came the Greeks, and then the Romans. So, if y'all remember Daniel's vision, or Nebuchadnezzar's vision, I guess, Daniel. We'll get to it in a few weeks anyway. Zephaniah. He says, one of the things he says, Zephaniah 1:14, the great day of the Lord is near, and coming quickly. What day is it talking about? Yes, I believe he's talking about that. He says it's near and coming quickly, but this was what? Almost 3,000 years ago? Does that seem quickly to you? Yeah, it might be to God, yes. But the word quickly doesn't necessarily mean soon. It means suddenly. And that's going to happen. I mean, it's going to come suddenly. It's going to come when people are not prepared, not watching. It will happen suddenly. So just remember that anytime you see the word quickly, doesn't necessarily mean soon, but means very suddenly. Okay, what about Jeremiah? What do you know about him? The weeping prophet? Who was he? Who was his? Who he's a descendant of? Remember that? He was a priest, so he was a descendant of the priest, but God called him to be a prophet. Yes, before he was born, God called him. Yes, in the womb. What is a prophet? Sometimes. Yes. The real definition of prophet is that it's not necessarily foretelling, but forthtelling. They pronounce the word of God. God will tell them something and they will announce it to the people. Sometimes it does tell about the future. Sometimes it's just a word of warning, a word of judgment. And we kind of look at, I guess a lot of times we look at it as being that they are just telling about the future, which some of it, I mean, they did. They did tell some, but a lot of it, most of it probably, if you read through the scriptures, most of it is going to be more about judgment and warning the people to change and to turn back to God. In verse 4, verse 10, in chapter 4, verse 10, it says, Jeremiah is talking to God, and he says, O sovereign Lord, how completely you have deceived this people and Jerusalem by saying, you will have peace when the sword is at our throats. Did God really deceive people and lie to people? So what does that verse mean? Yeah. Wanted to be sudden, I mean, soon, and it may not be. Okay. Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. I think part of it is that there were a lot of, quote, quote, prophets, teachers. In fact, I forgot exactly, I didn't write down the verse, but it says that they prophesy peace, peace when there is no peace. Do y'all remember reading that? So all of these people, supposedly men of God, were promoting peace and saying peace. And Jeremiah, I think when he hears this, and he says, God, all these people are saying peace, and they're saying it came from you, but we aren't. The sword's at our throats. We're not experiencing peace. What's going on here? And I don't think he was, maybe, really calling God a liar, but couldn't understand why all of these people were saying this, and then nothing was happening the way that they had been saying it. And I think that's a big part of it. Oh, it could be. Yeah, very well could be. Um, yes. Yes. Yep. I didn't look at the rest of that passage. By the way, do y'all know the difference between the major prophets and the minor prophets? The minor are shorter. And as far as I know, they're in order by their length for the most part. So the major ones, start with Isaiah. You have Jeremiah. Isaiah was 60-something, 66 chapters. Jeremiah is like 63. Ezekiel is 40-something. And then you get smaller and smaller and smaller. So, yeah, it's that's how they divided them up. It would have made more sense probably to have divided them up the way we've been reading them, as far as this happened during this king's time period, and this one talked during this king's time period, and stuff that way. But that's not the way they did it. I also thought it was really interesting that in the last few weeks we've read Isaiah, we've started Jeremiah, we've read Nahum and Zephaniah, and before that was Amos, yeah, and it just hit me one day that it seems like right there near the end of Israel and the end of Judah, God sent a lot more prophets, a lot more people, men to warn the king, warn the nation to turn back before it's too late. And it seems like the closer they got to that, the more people were telling that, but they didn't listen. And I think it's in Jeremiah, he talks about when they go into exile, he says it's going to be 70 years. And I always look at it, that's a long time. It's a lifetime for some of the people, because they weren't going to live to come back, but it was also a limited time. God said 70 years and then you're coming back. So he always has a remnant. He always is looking to the future, and he loves us much more, like you said, much more than we can truly understand. Yes, one way or another. Either he will save a remnant, or he will take the church home. Yes. And yes. Right. Giving them another opportunity to turn back to him. Yes. Yep. That's right. That's right. If you're a Christian, I truly believe Jesus is going to come back. I really believe in during my lifetime. Of course, Paul thought it would be during his lifetime too, and it didn't happen with Paul. And it might not happen with me. Who knows? But when he does, yes, um, we don't have to go through the tribulation. Celia was talking to a lady. This was right after we got married, and we lived in McLeod years ago. I think it was Jehovah's Witness. They came by and they were doing stuff, and and the lady said something like, "Well, don't you want to be one of the 144,000 that make it through the tribulation?" And Celia said, "No, I'd better be one of the ones that leave before tribulation even starts." Raptured before there. So yeah, and I think that they have over the years kind of adjusted that a little bit, because over the years they've had more than 144,000 members that, of good standing and stuff like that. So yeah. Of the in the tribulation, well, it says that they are from 12,000 from each of the tribes of Judah, or tribes of Israel. So that's just the Jewish people. Whether it's an exact number or not, I don't know. If it is, it wouldn't surprise me. If it's not, it wouldn't surprise me. But there will also be people from every nation, tribe, tongue that will also be saved during the tribulation time period. What gets me are those people that are here during the 1,000-year reign of Christ and still at the end of that 1,000 years turn against him. I can't understand that. I mean, yes, yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Well, let's stand and join hands, and we will sing our dismissal chorus. I will serve thee because I love thee. You have given life to me. I was nothing before you found me. You have given life to me. Heartaches, broken pieces, ruined lives are wide.